He's like, nah. He says, later on, he says, they take him out in the back of the Jennings station. Jennings police pull him over. They call the dispatch and find out that he's in Missouri. Take him to Jennings police station. They hold him there for 13 hours. And I confessed to him that I killed Angela and the kids. And what they want him to do is, they want him to make a tape. I wasn't even in the state of Missouri when these murders took place. No, I didn't. I not only did I not commit the crime.
The state said Leonard Raheem Taylor fled after slaying his girlfriend's family, and he was given his end for the crime. Yet he proclaimed till the very last second that he was innocent. Let's look at this case. Cameras recorded Leonard Raheem Taylor passing through security at St. Louis Lambert International Airport on the morning of Friday, November 26, 2004. That Taylor made this trip is undisputed. What it means depends on who you believe. According to the state of Missouri, the trip was evidence that Taylor, then 40, was fleeing St. Louis after brutally slaying his 28-year-old girlfriend, Angela Rowe, and her 3 young children. According to Taylor, the trip was for business, but with a twist. He was planning to meet his 13-year-old daughter, Deja, for the first time. During the visit, both Deja and her mother, Taylor's former girlfriend, say that Taylor called Rowe in St. Louis and put Deja on the phone to chat with one of Rowe's daughters. In other words, in the days after Taylor boarded that westbound flight, Rowe and her children were very much alive. Despite the discrepancy, Taylor was arrested 2 weeks later. He was tried on 4 counts of the first degree and sentenced to his end. The scene of the crime. Angela Rowe's family was worried. It was Friday, December 3rd, and no one had talked to her in several days. They called her children's school and were told the kids hadn't been there all week. That raised alarms. Her older sister, Gerjuan, recalled. Rowe's kids, 10-year-old Alexis, 6-year-old Akrea, and 5-year-old Tyrese, never missed school. The police arrived at Rowe's home in Jennings, just outside of St. Louis city limits, to check on the family around 6 p.m. The front of the house was dotted with Christmas decorations. Editions of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch were rolled up in plastic bags on the lawn, and mail had accumulated behind the storm door. Inside, police confronted a horrifying scene. Rowe's 3 children were lying on the 4-postered bed in the back bedroom, fully dressed, a comforter pulled over them. They had each been shot in the head. A TV in the room was blaring loudly. In the front bedroom was Rowe, also clothed and under a blanket. She too had been shot in the head. The air conditioning was set at around 50 degrees. Joseph Leb, an investigator from the medical examiner's office, reported that Rowe's body was in rigor mortis, a stiffening of the muscles that generally takes hold not long after demise, and her core body temperature was just over 51 degrees. The bodies exhibited early signs of decomposition. Leb reported. Outside, Gerjuan told Leb that she'd last seen Rowe the previous Saturday, November 27, when Rowe came over to lend her $50. The next morning, medical examiner Philip Birch performed the autopsies. Based on the condition of the bodies, Rowe and her children had likely been butchered at least a day, no more than a week, before they were found. He told defense lawyers during a 2006 deposition. He was most confident, he said, that the family had passed sometime during the week of November 29. Police quickly latched on to Leonard Taylor, Rowe's live-in boyfriend, as their main suspect. The night the bodies were found, Gerjuan asked the cops whether Taylor was inside the house, and police reports indicate that various members of Rowe's family said that her relationship with Taylor was not without its struggles. Taylor had a criminal record and a history of violence. He'd done time in California for physical exploitation and was accused in 2000 of physically exploiting his 16-year-old stepdaughter. He was also a seasoned drug dealer who trafficked cocaine across the country, amassing a string of aliases and fraudulent IDs. Still, the state never offered a cogent motive to explain the vicious and cold-blooded crime. Taylor had overlapping intimate relationships that followed the path of his illicit business dealings, which earned him the nickname Cass, short for Casanova. While Taylor was involved with Rowe, he also had a wife in California and a girlfriend in Kentucky. Among his past partners was Mia Perry, Deja's mother, who he became involved with in the late 1980s. In 1991, the same year that Deja was born, Taylor was popped for drug dealing and sentenced to time in federal prison. He never got to meet his baby daughter. While inside, Taylor told the Kansas City Star he hooked up with some cats that were on some corporate stuff doing corporate check fraud. Upon his release, Taylor began a short-lived career in white-collar crime, which landed him in Missouri State Prison. Roe, the youngest sister of Taylor's former neighbor in St. Louis, visited him often while he was incarcerated. When he was released in 2002, Taylor re-upped his cross-country drug trade, staying with Roe when he was in town. In the summer of 2004, Taylor, Roe, and the kids moved into the house in Jennings. Roe had Taylor's name tattooed on her arm. Around the home, there were pictures of the smiling couple and love notes Roe had written. The move was a relief, according to Taylor, because he'd recently had a drug deal go bad with the notoriously violent Gangster Disciples, who operated in St. Louis and southern Illinois. Meanwhile, he'd also gotten a lead on his long-lost daughter Deja, whom he ultimately tracked down in California just days after Thanksgiving. During their reunion, Taylor called back home to St. Louis to share the news with Roe. Taylor had plans to bring Deja out to St. Louis and wanted her to chat with Roe and 10-year-old Alexis. The following Monday, Taylor boarded a Greyhound bus carrying 1 kilo of cocaine and headed back east on business. He told the KC Star. On December 9, Taylor was arrested in Kentucky for the slayings of Roe and her children. The investigation. 8 hours after the bodies were found, at 2:15 a.m. on December 4, Perry Taylor got a phone call from a St. Louis police detective. Perry, who has since died, worked as a truck driver for Gainey Transportation Services, which sent him all over the country hauling freight. Perry was spending the night south of Atlanta when he got the call. It's unclear from the record whether police were the first to inform him that Roe and her children had been shot fatally. But according to a police report, a detective asked Perry if he knew where his younger brother was, which he did not know. Police eventually tracked down Perry at a truck stop on the New Jersey Turnpike. According to their report, they took him to a local police station where they asked him again when he last spoke to his brother. Perry recalled his brother had called about a rap show in Alabama. He said detectives said they had records that showed otherwise. They also asked if Taylor had a gun. Perry said it wouldn't surprise him given his brother's lifestyle. On December 8, detectives finally got what they wanted from Perry. They arrested him, took him to the Jennings police station, and asked him to give a videotape statement. The original video, which was more than 3 hours long, was later edited into several brief clips totaling less than 8 minutes. Jurors would only see the shortened version. Perry is asked again when he last talked to his brother. "The last time I spoke with him was the night he told me he did that," he says. In a pretrial deposition 3 years later, Perry angrily insisted that he had been coerced into giving the statements against his brother. Perry recalled the cops threatening that if he didn't say what they wanted, they would hurt his mother. Nevertheless, 1 year later, Perry's videotaped statements would become the state's primary evidence against Taylor at trial.
He's like, nah. He says, later on, he says, they take him out in the back of the Jennings station. They tell him that they believe that I committed these murders. We got into it. She come at me and stabbed me with a knife. Jennings police pull him over. They call the dispatch and find out that he's in Missouri. Beat him up, put gun in his mouth, tell him, listen, you're a truck driver. The children witnessed it, so I murdered them. Stating that I called him on November the 22nd now. Take him to Jennings police station. They hold him there for 13 hours. We can make it where you can be found dead in your truck. And I confessed to him that I killed Angela and the kids. I couldn't get her off of me, so I shot her. And what they want him to do is, they want him to make a tape.
November 28 was the last day that witnesses report having talked to Roe and the kids, according to reliable testimonials. At trial, prosecutors rolled back the clock instead, leaning into Perry's videotaped statement and arguing that Taylor slaughtered Roe and the children in the wee hours of November 24, then remained in the house until he flew to California on the morning of November 26. In pressing this alternate timeline, the state had a strong ally, medical examiner Philip Birch. Birch, who died in 2014, had previously said that the most likely time of demise was within days of the bodies being found on December 3, and no more than a week beforehand, a window that would exclude Taylor. But at trial, Birch changed his story, claiming that he hadn't taken into account the air conditioner being set at 50 degrees. With that in mind, he testified that Roe and the children could have been destroyed up to 3 weeks before they were found. During the trial, it was proven that blood from Taylor's sunglasses and car was consistent with Roe's DNA profile. A witness testified that they saw Taylor discard the possible weapon used at the scene, which matched the caliber of the bullets used in the slayings. The same caliber bullets were also later found in Taylor's car. So while some facts didn't line up, others did. A nationwide manhunt led to authorities finding Taylor hiding in the floorboard of a car after leaving another girlfriend's home in Kentucky. He was arrested 4 days after the bodies were discovered. Taylor's daughter, Deja, was 13 years old when he went to see her. She provided a sworn declaration that she and her father called Rowe during his California visit. Taylor always maintained his innocence, arguing that police fixated on him as a suspect and ignored a compelling alibi supported by witness statements in favor of a theory in which he slaughtered his loved ones and then stayed at the crime scene for days before flying to California. His supporters included the national NAACP, nearly 36 civil rights and religious groups, and the Midwest Innocence Project, but Taylor's innocence claims were turned aside time and again. Though Taylor continued saying he was innocent, Missouri Governor Mike Parson said the facts of his guilt in the slayings have been proven. Parson said, despite his self-serving claim of innocence, the fact of his guilt in this gruesome quadruple homicide remain. The state of Missouri will carry out Taylor's sentences according to the court's order and deliver justice for the 4 innocent lives he stole. All of Taylor's appeals were denied, leaving open a host of unanswered questions and doubts about his guilt. His efforts to avail himself on a Missouri law that allowed prosecutors to reopen possible wrongful convictions were rebuffed by St. Louis County prosecuting attorney Wesley Bell.
I wasn't even in the state of Missouri when these murders took place. One, like I said, there was no motive. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I not only did I not commit the crime, I had no reason to commit the crime.
Leonard Taylor's end. Taylor was put to his end by lethal injection. He issued a final written statement before his end. O you who believe, seek assistance through patience and prayer. Surely Allah is with the patient, and do not speak of those who are slain in Allah's way as dead. Nay, they were alive, but you do not perceive. Muslims don't die, we live eternally in the hearts of our family and friends. From Allah we come, and to Allah we all shall return. Everybody will get their turn to die. Death is not your enemy, it is your destiny. Look forward to meeting it. Peace. He was the 3rd Missouri inmate put to their end in the last few months at the state prison in Bonne Terre. Taylor reportedly kicked his feet as the 5 grams of pentobarbital were administered, then took 5 or 6 deep breaths before all movement stopped. That's all for today's video. See you next time.